Good morning to all. Welcome to Global Online. And here we are discussing NTA UGC NET 2023 Paper 2 Economics. And today's lecture is based on Cobb-Douglas production function, a very important and also a beautiful lesson in economics. Before moving ahead, a quick look at what Global Online offering for you. It is very surprising and also make you very happy. We provide full syllabus video lectures, notes, mock tests, and solved PYQs with solution. And a new batch is going to start soon where we give you 100% guaranteed selection course. And those who have interested, please contact with the given WhatsApp number. So, without wasting our time, we starting our session. And initially, we start with two questions that is based on Cobb-Douglas production function. Students study all theories and also the concept related with the paper too, but they do not study about the practicability or the applicability of the portions they studied. So we start with the questions and later we move on to theories. So it will be more helpful to you to find answer and also make your study effective. First question, Cobb-Douglas production function assumes increasing, diminishing, constant and all of the above is given. And the next question based on, in the Cobb-Douglas production function, what is the term for the change in output that result from one additional unit of an input? Output elasticity, marginal product, returns to scale, production function. And later we discuss this question. Before that, we want to discuss what is Cobb-Douglas production function. It's an empirical study of the American manufacturing industry made by Paul H. Douglas and C. W. Cobb, and that name comes to Cobb-Douglas production function, and it is a linear homogeneous production function of degree 1. In one of the exam, there are a question about what's the Cobb-Douglas production function based on, and it is the function of degree 1. It's taken to two inputs, that is labor and capital, and for the entire output of the manufacturing industry there are only two inputs, one is labor and the other is capital. And the Cobb-Douglas production function is expressed as Q equal to AL raised to alpha, C raised to beta. And then what is Q? Q is the output, that is the unit of goods, and L and C are inputs of labor and capital. There is also use K instead of C, also mean capital, and A, alpha, beta. These three portions are positive parameters where alpha greater than 0 and also beta greater than 0. And the equation depends directly on L and C. So any change that caused to L and C will also cause to the output also. And that part of output which cannot be explained by L and C is explained by A. That is the residual, and it also called technical change. It's also a question. And then application of Cobb-Douglas production function, one is MRTS, that is marginal rate of technical substitution. It is the rate of change of one input with respect to other input along an isocone. So we can know what is an isocone. Isocone is like that. It's a C-shaped curve, and also the rate of change of one input with respect to other input along an isocone. So isocone is the shows the same quantity that changes with the ratio of capital and labor. So with different ratios of capital and labor, they gives same quantity. Here 10 units of 10 units of output will provide with a Here 5 units of capital and here 2 units of labor. So it's a point where 10 units of outputs can be gained or produced. And in the same quantity also, it can change with the increasing or decreasing the quantity of capital and labor. So mathematically it is represented as MRTSL, that is labor, marginal rate of technical substitution, minus delta K divided by delta L, and the delta denotes any change that goes to K and L. Here K is capital used, L is labor used, and then the minus sign or the negative sign before the equation comes from represents slope of the isochrone curve, and we know that the slope of the isochrone curve is negative. Okay, negative. So this negativity is shows in the equation as the minus sign. So therefore the minus sign is added in order to make MRTS a positive number, and whenever a negative term with a minus becomes a positive number. So to make the MRTS positive, the negative sign before the equation is made, and then is the increasing, constant and decreasing returns are shown by a graph, and it is the increasing curve that starts from the origin and later it moves into the upward position, and also it's a decreasing returns and it's a constant returns, and in this return to scale comes. It's a second application of Cobb-Douglas production function. This is a change in output as a result of change in the factor inputs. So here also output change as a result of change in the factor inputs in the same proportion. It's very important. In same proportion. Whenever the change in output goes as 10 units, also the factor inputs changes 10 units. So that is the same proportion here. In later is a long-term concept, which means that this concept is defined for a time period after which a production function is determined. So after the production function is determined, it also become a long-term concept. All the factors in the long run behave like variable and they are not fixed. So all the factors in long run be variable and they are not fixed. So it can be changed. Thus, as the input changes, scale of production also changes because of the proportionality. So here in MRTS, there shows that change in one input with respect to other input along an isochrone, and in the returns to scale shows change in the input the output as a result of change in the factor inputs in same proportion. In MRTS shows the relation between two inputs, and in returns to scale shows the relation between output and inputs, that's in the same proportion. And there are three types of returns to scale based on the proportion of the input and outputs, that is increasing, decreasing, and last one constant. Based on the nature of the outputs increase, decrease or same proportion, variation in accordance to the change in the input factors. So here alpha plus beta, alpha and beta are the positive parameters that shows the quantities of labor and capital. So here input sum of inputs greater than 1 shows that increasing returns to scale, and sum of parameters that is less than 1 indicates a decreasing returns to scale, and sum of parameters equal to 1 indicates constant returns to scale. And then the important portion, properties of Cobb-Douglas production function. Here first one is MP of capital and labor. Marginal product of capital and labor depends only on the quantities of capital and labor used in the production process. So according to the capital and labor quantities that is used in the production process, the marginal product of capital and labor also changes. So here marginal product means that the additional product that must be buy by the consumer or the producer in the production process. And the next point is MRS, that is marginal rate of substitution. dq by dl whole divided by dq by dk. So here dq means the change in quantity and dl means change in labor. So here according to the change in the labor, that causes change to the output, and here change in the capital that change the quantity. Okay, so these are the two inputs that make changes to the outputs. It is the marginal rate of substitution. And alpha and beta, the exponents of k and l, show the output elasticities of labor, that is el and capital ek. So the K and L, the two inputs, and the parameters are alpha and beta. AL alpha, K beta. So here L for alpha, K for beta. So the labor, that is the parameter alpha, and the capital, the parameter beta, shows the output elasticity of labor and capital. So the alpha shows the output elasticity of labor and the beta shows the output elasticity of capital. And then if the beta equal to 0.5, then 1% rise in amount of labor used. So the beta is 0.5. Beta shows what? K beta, that is capital. So here changes in labor, that means 1% rise in the amount of labor used. 1% rise in amount of labor without changing the capital will rise the output by 0.5. And this is because of beta equal to 0.5 and beta is a parameter of capital. Okay. And then Cobb-Douglas production function can be extended easily, and it can be extended to more than two inputs, that is here shows capital labor, natural resources, non-production labor, etc. Okay. Then elasticity of substitution, that is the elasticity means the elasticity of input to output here. Hence such a production function elasticity of factor substitution is equal to 1. That is the change in k by l, it is the ratio of capital to labor, changed ratio, it is the previous ratio. And also mrs means change in marginal rate of substitution, it is the initial MRS. So the change that goes to capital by labor ratio that divided by change in the MRS, it shows the elasticity of substitution. Here the two terms elasticity and substitution both are done in the one equation. Okay, that is dk by L, that is delta k by L divided by k by L whole divided by delta MRS by MRS. Next is factor intensity. It is the ratio that is measured by beta by alpha. Beta, that is capital, alpha labor. And the higher the ratio, the more labor intensive the technique is. And similarly, lower the ratio, the more capital intensive the term is. Okay. So here beta by alpha shows factor intensity, that is which technique we want to use in the production process. It will shows by beta by alpha. And capital by labor ratio, that is higher whenever they use labor intensive technique. And also the ratio shows a decreasing or lower the trend. It means there are more capital intensive. Okay, and then the sum of two exponents that we already discussed, that is alpha plus beta greater than 1 increasing, alpha plus beta less than 1 decreasing, alpha plus beta equal to 1 constant. So here sum of the exponents will give returns to scale. Okay, the seventh property. Next, the Cobb-Douglas production function has an additional property, that is homothetic production function. That is a straight line expansion path. So here that shows a straight line path, and also the labor and capital are used in every unit are given, and for 100 units of output there will be use L1 units of labor and C1 units of capital, and also for 200 units use the same technique L2 and C2, and C3 L3 gives 300 units. So here gives a straight line production function, that is an expansion path. It's the eighth property. Then we move to our question. First question, Cobb-Douglas production function assumes. And here we see the three increasing, diminishing, constant, three scales are given. But the question asks, it assumes what? And suddenly we got answer that all of the above. But the answer is wrong. The answer is constant return to scale. So the Cobb-Douglas production function assumes constant return to scale. You should remember that Cobb-Douglas, that stands or starts from C. So here C for constant return to scale. Okay. And the next question, in the Cobb-Douglas production function, what is the term for the change in output that result from one additional unit of an input? So here we want to know the two terms, change in output and also input. So here change in output that result from one additional unit of input. The relationship between input and output, that is output elasticity, marginal product, returns to scale, production function. We all know the answer, that is MP, marginal product. The relation between input and input, that gives in MRTS, and the relation between input and output, that gives in marginal product. Okay, and that's for the day. We end with a thought that failure is not the opposite of success, it's part of success. So accept the term and also work hard and achieve your success. Thank you. We will meet on next video.